Hi, this is Peter Konechny with Medievalist.net, and I'm here with Christine Kralik, who is a PhD student here at the University of Toronto, and we are at the Canadian Conference of Medieval Art Historians, and you just gave a paper yesterday. Could you just tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I called the paper A New Vision of Death, referring specifically to a chapter in a classic study of the late Middle Ages. The chapter was called A Vision of Death in a book first published in English as The Waning of the Middle Ages, now more commonly referred to as The Autumn of the Middle Ages by the great cultural critic Johann Huizinga. And I was looking at his argument about the late Middle Ages as being a period of decadence and excess, and how the art of death, the representations of corpses and so on, are a reflection of that, but how the kinds of evidence that he looked at, the fact that he primarily was looking at sculptures and large-scale wall paintings that tended to be in a funerary context, tended to be in a cemetery or something like that, kind of limited his perspective on the art of death of that period. And I felt that by looking at smaller scale, more intimate objects, private devotional objects, would sort of complicate that view and allow us to have a more clear picture of how people thought about death and how they prepared for death in their lives in the late Middle Ages.
It was a fascinating article, and one thing that I noticed right away is like Huizinga's work, The Waning of the Middle Ages, or The Autumn of the Middle Ages, is a very well-known book. I remember reading it as an undergrad, and it's something that I was wondering, how do you kind of approach a kind of text like that? And I'm working with this power, like this giant of the scholarly world, although it's quite a long time ago.
Well, it's a bit intimidating to take on a figure as important and as influential as Huizinga, but I thought it was a challenge to try to step back and critique his perspective and think about how our thinking about the Middle Ages has changed since he wrote that book almost, 90 years ago. And I realized that by thinking a little bit about the way that he approached the period and how we approach cultural artifacts a little bit differently now, I can sort of problematize his approach and therefore be able to take something from his view, but also see how we can move forward and think about the material he looked at in a slightly different way.
Now, like you're almost finishing up your PhD program here, and I was just wondering, how did you get interested in your particular area? What kind of is a general theme of your work?
I am focused on this period of the late Middle Ages, specifically manuscript illumination, the kinds of images that appear in private prayer books, primarily books of hours from the period. And I first encountered the three living and the three dead in a seminar class with a professor at U of T many years ago, Jeffrey Hamburger, when he was still teaching at the University of Toronto. And I was just kind of struck by this fascinating opposition of living and dead interacting with each other, and I thought I had to know more. And I discovered that it had been about 40 years since the last major study of the iconography of the three living and the three dead. It seemed timely to take on that subject again, and so I'm finishing up my dissertation this year, and
well, I remember you in graduate school, and I always remember you with the smart one. So
oh, thank you.
So thank you so much for having speaking with us here today.
Thank you.